What is up, guys? Welcome to another video. That Geeky guy here, and today I'll be bringing you guys the deck list for the top 4 ProQuest that I did just yesterday as of the recording of this video. So the ProQuest was of 42 players and I made it into top 8 and then I made it into top 4. So this deck does pretty well against, I would say, classes like Prism. Chain is okay, and then Briar, it's all manageable. So the only weakness would be against Star War. I was pretty lucky to not meet any Star War during my 6 rounds of Swiss, which I got 4 wins of. Unfortunately, I did lose to a Prism, which played really well, and in Ice Lexi. So those are some of the Ice Lexi. I would say it's a bit of a rough matchup because of the frostbites and stuff, and also forcing you to discard with Chilling Icewind. So we're gonna go through the deck list. You can get the deck list at my Patreon. I'm gonna post the deck list there, but don't worry, you're gonna see all the cards in the deck list, so don't worry about that. So we're gonna go through the loadout. So of course, Kodachi, Scales, Tunic, Cross-Strap, Mask, and also Scalers would be the usual equipments. But the thing is, I also put in 3 Arcane Barriers against Kano because I am afraid of Kanos. I do not have much practice with Kanos. Fortunately, I did not meet any of them. I'm going to have the breakdown of the list of heroes I played against during the ProQuest down in the pinned comments, so do check that out so you guys know what I went against. So these are pretty standard. So I usually play Cross-Strap against Chain because you do want to raise them. You don't want to get their shackles too high. So usually the game ends around the 3rd or the 4th shackle because you would be taking everything. And other than that, it's pretty standard. So you may argue to play Cross-Strap against Briar because you don't want her to get the mountain out. So you want to kill her off before the mountain. But I still prefer Tunic. Because of the 1 extra armor and also, you know, gaining 1 resource because we do play out of 4 against her. Now we're gonna go through the list here. So 3 copies of AEs, so Ancestral Empowerment, pretty box standard. So this blocks for 3, excellent attack reaction +1, draw a card. So usually this goes really well on leg tap because leg tap has 4. So which is the breaking point for defense reaction like Sink Below and stuff. So you want to +1. So 2 copies of CNC. I would take 1 out against Star War. I'll leave 1 in because usually they can just crown it away. But 2 copies, of course, against Prism and all the other classes. 3 copies of E-Strikes, 3 copies of Red, even bigger than that. So some might prefer to play yellow, but I still find Red a bit more consistent because I really value the opting. So considering the turn where you have AEs and also mass draws, so Op 3 works really well with that. So you get to basically set up your turn pretty well with even bigger than that, the red one. And then 3 copies of Flick Flag. So put this in against, I'll put this in against wider decks. So against maybe like, I'll put 1 in against Star War, taking 2 out because it makes it easier to block the Winter's Veil. But usually you just let the Winter's Veil hit because Frostbite doesn't really bother Katsu. Since the attacks are so cheap, I usually put Flick Flag in against Briar. Maybe take it out against Viserai. So it really depends on how I'm feeling. But Flick Flag goes in for against wider deck such as Briar. So I want to take this 3 out against Prism. Maybe put 1 in if they are going for multiple Herald attacks. But usually I'll just, you know, take it out and go against wider deck. Because currently for the meta, Prism is really going for those aura hits. So Flick Flag doesn't come really well. So as long as you're controlling the board and you're applying enough pressure on Prism, they would not be able to play all the heralds and they would be forced to go for the... you're basically forcing them to play the auras. And they're going to pop the auras using Kodachis. So Flick Flag, what I usually do is I still want the option. So I'll leave 1 in and then take 2 out. So 3 copies of Leg Tap. So Leg Tap is one of your main damage dealers. Excellent damage for 1. Go again. So this is good. And then 3 copies of red 100 wins. So 100 wins is one of those attacks you want to start the chain with. So usually I go for 100 wins. So if 100 wins hit, you basically can Katsu trigger and do all the fancy stuff. So usually what happens is 100 wins, Katsu trigger. Imagine I already have a leg tap in hand. So discard a 0 cost, look for Rising Knee. So 100 win, Kodachi, leg tap, and then leg tap, Kodachi, leg tap, and then Rising Knee. So that's one option. Or you can go for leg tap, Rising Knee, Kodachi. It doesn't matter, because you want to play around your mask, make sure that you threaten the mask draw. So 3 copies of Razor Reflexes, 3 copies of Razor. By the way, there are also 2 blue 100 wins. So I know the argument would be Crown works again. So this is really bad against Crown, but against all the other classes, I think it's fine. Maybe it's a bit bad against Prism, but the argument I would say would be that these blue ones, some guys likes to play the yellow one, but I think the blue one's pretty decent, because for one, you always have breaking scales. So remember, the 100 wins is a combo card, so you can just pop this if you really need the extra damage. But you know, the blue ones are there just for usually for pitching. But if there are 2 blues in my hand, I'll definitely play this out. 3 copies of a red Rising Knee, that's box standard, and then 1 copy of blue. 3 Sing Belows, 3 Snatches. So most of the Katsu lists these days don't play Torrent of Tempo, I think, and also Sobi Strike. They go for a more different approach, maybe more 100 wins. But I still like the card very much, because it forces your opponent to give more than a defense reaction. So usually they'll block with 2 cards with 3 or 2 blocks, or a equipment and then a defense reaction or something like that. So this is pretty good. So it's even more dangerous if you're going for your opponent, if you're going for Torrent of Tempo and a Razor Reflex. And if they do not respect your Kodachis and then Torrent of Tempo, so it's gonna force for the mask draw. And then 3 copies of Sobi Strike. 4, again, it's a very good number. It's a breaking point for defense reaction, so you can keep it in. So 2 copies are movable. I'll play this against Star Wars and Warriors for their huge attacks. So basically, pitch a blue, play unmovable, basically cushion some of the damage, and then take the hammer, the Winter's Will, and then you should be good. But my win rate against Star Wars, I would say, is pretty bad. So this is just there to help out a bit. 3 copies of... By the way, against Star Wars, you wouldn't want to be too passive. You want to be the one that actually applies the pressure. So I would suggest taking out 2 Flick Flag, leave 1 in, 3 Sing Belows, leave that in, and then 2 unmovables. So you don't want to have too many defense reaction, but you do not want to have too little, ending up getting your face whacked in. And then 3 copies of red searching, 2 copies of yellow. So it is you could argue to add 1 more, but I find that this is the right amount. I guess you could take out 1 of the Torrent of Tempo and put in the yellow searching if you want. And then 3 copies of red Whelmings, 3 copies of blue Whelmings. So this is standard. I do not play the yellow ones. I found this to be pretty enough. So and then we have 2 copies of Hurricane Technique. So some may argue to put in the Blackout Kick, but I find Hurricane Technique presents more threat, because it is 5, which is more than a defense reaction, and if it hits, it goes back to my hand, which is my favorite thing about this card. So it makes your opponent think twice of letting it hit, and also it has go again. Blackout Kick, on the other hand, it's a 7. I understand there's 2 extra damage there, but this deck has enough blues that you could actually go twice with Hurricane if you want, and your Tunic should be floating for quite a bit. So this actually helps. The Tunic counter actually helps with Art of War. So Art of War, 2 copies of those. So 2 copies provide enough consistency. If you're playing 1, it's I don't think you'll draw it into it before the game ends, or you draw into it a bit too late. So 2 copies, pretty okay. So usually you want to play this when you have the Tunic counter, but if you don't, it's okay. You can always go for it. pitch a blue, and then discard attack action, banish, and then +1 or go again. Entirely up to your preference. 2 copies of Mugenshi. So Mugenshi is one of the worst attack, I believe, in the ninja deck, but you do need it for the whole, of course, whelming combo. So hence 2 copies. You don't want to have 3. 3 will actually clunk up your hand. I used to play 3 because I believe it's a Katsu specialization. I'm gonna play 3, but 2 is more than enough. Trust me. So pitch that away if it came in too early. So if you do have a surging and whelming in hand, Mugenshi should come pretty easily, because usually your opponent's gonna let the surging hit, and then you got discard a 0 and they look for Mugenshi, and a whelming comes in. Okay, so these are the blues. So 1 copy of Print Dance because we do have Soul Beat. 2 copies of Fine Center. So you see, this is my mistake. So you might want to change this out with something else. Maybe put in a blue Soul Beat. Blue Soul Beat is not bad. And then 3 copies of Winds of Eternity for the 100 wins, and a lot of wind, and then a single Lunging Press. So Lunging Press is for those games that, I mean, you basically can play this with CNC. You can play with basically anything, but it goes really well with CNC. So I just want to point that out. That's pretty much it, guys. Thank you very much for watching. This is the deck. So for more sideboard guides and stuff, do check out my Patreon. I'm gonna put out the post there, and that's it. Katsu is still good, depending on the matchup. Since there are many prisms running around, so you have quite a bit of chance. And then since Star Wars rotating is going to Living Legend, Katsu is gonna be quite a bit good moving forward. So thank you very much for watching, guys, and see you guys in the next one. Do like and subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you get all the notification for my content. Bye.